We mentioned the fight yesterday at camp. That's the big news. That's what everybody's talking about after Monday's training camp. Glenn West, who covers LSU football and LSU sports for 247 Sports, was at camp and about 10 feet away from the action. So we're going to get a firsthand account of our guy, Glenn West, who is back with us here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Glenn, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jordy. How are you?
Doing good, man. Good to see you. All right, everybody's talking about the fight, Glenn. Tell me about where was your point of view? What happened? What'd you see?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty routine play. There was a lot of kind of talking going back and forth and obviously some high competition, some, very, passionate play going on during the 11-on-11 stuff. There was just a disagreement, a little shoving going on, and that kind of just escalated. And there were several punches thrown by a number of players. And once you see that happen, there's really no other option for Brian Kelly but to kind of not only just throw those guys out and kind of have them cool off, but also bring the team together. I thought it was a really we were able to kind of hear a little bit of what he had to say, and just kind of the message of being, guys, we want to be aggressive and we want to be competitive, but we don't want to be over the top and punching out our brothers and that kind of thing. There was, the word brotherhood was thrown around a lot during that little conversation there with the team, and it was very needed. It was a very needed kind of huddle. I think for LSU to kind of get back on track during the practice, and I think a pretty good learning lesson, I think, for those guys just to, rein in those emotions when things get a little out of control. You don't want to see that happen, and I think it's something that those guys can learn from, and we'll see kind of how it affects the team, I guess, here going forward in the short term.
I don't want to make a mountain out of a camp fight. These things happen.
Yeah.
Denver Harris is in the middle of it again. This seems to be not an issue, but something that people are paying attention to. What do you feel is going on with Harris, and what does it mean for him to be in this back and forth?
Yeah, I didn't even really see Harris. I mean, the main guys that I kind of saw kind of get involved were Malik Neighbors and Kyron Lacey, Harold Perkins, Major Burns threw a couple punches as well. But I did hear about Harris kind of joining in there. Look, I don't want to put, like you said, I don't want to put too much into this. I think, it was just a moment there of kind of recklessness for the team, and I think they were able to hone it in pretty quickly, kind of get everybody separated, everybody cooled off. I mean, it was 100, 105, 110 degrees out there yesterday. It was not a very cool day. It was, emotions can get heated, and certainly in those kinds of conditions, if somebody thinks, you're kind of going over the top, it can get out of hand a little quickly. But, I'm with you. I don't think we should put too much into this. I'm sure Brian Kelly will address it today with the media after practice, and I'll be interested to hear what he has to say 24 hours after the incident.
Take me to Denver Harris, the player, Glenn. What have you seen from him on the field, and where does he fit in?
Yeah, so he's been mainly running with the second and third team. He's been kind of put in that boundary corner spot. They really, I think they really like his talent, and I think it's just going to be a matter of getting him up to speed with where some of these other guys are at. I think at least through the first week of camp, it's pretty fair to say that Zy Alexander has a pretty good hold on one of those outside corner spots, and they've been kind of rotating, Denver Harris. They were rotating J.K. Johnson in there before he got hurt. Terrence Welch has been getting a lot of the first team reps over there. Deuce Chestnut has been working a lot opposite of Zy Alexander. So I'm not sure that they're any closer to figuring out kind of who's going to be the reliable option at those cornerback spots. But they're doing a lot of rotating right now, and Denver Harris is certainly in that mix. He's been, the one-on-one drills, it's kind of hard to make a big assessment just because the receivers have such an advantage there. But he's been beaten a couple times by the receivers. LSU's receivers have been kind of them and the offensive line, I think, have been really the big storylines here out of the first few practices. They both look really good. And I think right now it's just trying to get the secondary, and particularly that cornerback room, a bit more up to speed.
Glenn, one name that we've been talking about and hearing about is Andre Sam, somebody that's added some really nice stability to that back end of the defense. What have you seen from the seventh-year player?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been great, and I think it was, it's been very telling that they've been rolling out a lot of three safety looks, and he's been that third safety next to Greg Brooks and Major Burns. Greg Brooks missed a lot of yesterday's practice with an injury, but Andre Sam has kind of stepped right in and hasn't skipped a beat. To end the 11-on-11 period that we got to see yesterday, he picked off Garrett Nussmeier on a really nice play, just kind of cut off the route and did a nice job of getting his hands on the ball and picking it off. So, he's a guy who's seen a lot. I mean, obviously he's played a lot of ball, obviously not at this level, throughout his career. But I think it's an opportunity that he's certainly sees and taken, advantage of. And he's been very steady, very reliable back there. He's a little bit longer and a little bit taller than I actually thought kind of coming in. He's about 6 foot, 6'1", got some good size to him. So, he's been really good. He's been a bright spot for sure in the secondary, and I'm sure LSU and the coaching staff is happy to see that.
Brian Thomas watching yesterday. What have you learned on his update or on what's holding him out, and the latest on the injury report? Who else have you seen missing action?
Yeah, so Brian Thomas, we heard it's a minor thing. It's not going to be a serious long-term injury. I think they're just being a little bit more cautious with their players right now, especially in these conditions. You don't want to go out there and have somebody, further injure themselves. I think that Brian Thomas will be back sooner than later. J.K. Johnson actually is dealing with a pretty serious leg injury from what we understand, and he's going to miss some serious time. He was he was rolling around yesterday on one of those scooters and pretty heavy cast on the bottom of his left leg, I believe. So he's going to be out for a while. That's kind of a bad misstep of fortune there, I think, for him, just because he's a former 4 or 5 star guy on our service, and was really going to be in the mix, I think, for some heavy playing time. But and the cornerback room is going to have to adjust because of that. But he's going to be out for a while. Greg Brooks, went down during the early portion of practice on Monday. Not sure the severity of his injury yet. He didn't return to practice, so that's not very good. But we'll get probably an update from Brian Kelly today as well. But those are kind of the main 3 that we've noticed so far. LSU's been pretty healthy. I think a lot of that has to do with the kind of off-season shape that they were in and the work that they put in with Jake Flint and the strength and conditioning team. A lot of these guys are being able to handle the severe weather conditions very well, and it's a good sign that they don't have a whole ton of injuries, or at least a whole ton of significant injuries at this point in camp.
Glenn, the quarterbacks have had a really good camp up to this point. It hadn't been long, but they've seemingly started pretty sharp here. What have you seen from the signal callers?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jaden Daniels has looked the part. I mean, he hasn't, he's taken some shots. He hadn't taken a whole ton of shots downfield. They haven't really opened up the playbook yet either for him. But he's hitting all of his one-on-ones. He's deliberate with his decision making. I think he's had a really nice start to camp. A lot of that I think has to do with the offensive line, and those guys have been a real, they've shown real improvement there. I think that's been a really underrated part of the early parts of this camp, and it's really helped those quarterbacks. Garrett Nussmeier, it's just hard not to love the arm talent that Nuss has, and he's really improved and locked down some of the erratic decision making that maybe you could say he made in the past. I think he's been really, really good in this early start to fall camp, and there's just a lot of healthy competition going on in that room right now, and I think that Nussmeier is pushing Daniels is pushing Nussmeier, and you're seeing a lot of really good results. The offense has been moving very, very consistently in the 11-on-11 portions of their drills. They're hitting all their one-on-ones, and it's just been a really good start, I think, for the quarterback room.
How's that running back competition looking?
Man, it seems like every day there's a different guy that's popping off and, getting a lot of the reps. I don't know that they're very close to deciding who's going to be kind of the early season rotation. I mean, I've kind of always had it in the back of my head that, Josh Williams, Noah Cain, Logan Diggs, those are going to be kind of the three guys that maybe LSU rolls into the Florida State game with. But John Emery got some first team reps yesterday. I mean, for a guy who hasn't really been fully around the team, I don't think, in quite some time. He's in very good shape. He was moving very well. Caleb Jackson, the freshman out of Liberty over there, he got some first team reps yesterday. I think they really like his potential. He's just a huge guy. I mean, he's every bit of the 6', 220 or whatever he's listed at right now. He's very, very big and very fast, very agile. I think they're going to be able to use him in some kind of role out of the backfield, and I think they can use him as a pass catcher as well. So they're rotating a bunch of guys right now. Kevontre Bradford's also had a very nice start to camp. He had a freak of the week, I think, deal. Kind of to close out the off season, and I think the coaching staff is really starting to lean in to what he can do as a dual threat player. So the running back room is looking good. They're going to have a lot of options, obviously, there for week one, and it's a good thing that they're going to have these 8 scholarship backs, because we all know that they didn't really stay all that healthy last year, and if they're able to stay healthy, then they're going to have a lot of options and a lot of different tools in which they can use those guys.
One of the names that was an option that was it was interesting to hear Brian Kelly say earlier this week would possibly be Aaron Anderson. Anderson seemingly has started to find his way at LSU football. Some of the highlights that are coming out on him look electric. What have you seen from the Alabama transfer?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to look at him and think of like the college version of a Tyreek Hill or something. I mean, he's that quick, he's that explosive. They were putting him in man coverage and one-on-one drills. I wouldn't want to be the defensive back that has to cover him. He put Major Burns in a major spin cycle yesterday on one of those one-on-ones that he did, and he's just so quick and he can change directions so quickly. He's just a really good option and weapon that I think LSU will be able to use, not just offensively but certainly on special teams as well. He's getting a lot of the punt return duties right now. I think he's somebody they can absolutely use out of the backfield, and just get him the ball in space 5 to 10 times a game. I think he's going to make people miss. He's going to get the ball downfield, and he's going to make some stuff happen for you. So, yeah, I absolutely believe Aaron Anderson is kind of starting to find his footing here. He's finally healthy. He missed a lot of the spring with an injury. So, the fact that he's healthy now and that he's showing some of his true potential, I think, is something that LSU is fully going to lean into. He'll
help on special teams as well. Special teams got a ton of work yesterday. That is a group that needs to improve. What have you seen from specialists there? What was your takeaway from that segment?
Yeah, they absolutely did a lot of special teams work yesterday. They were doing a drill, I think, with a lot of the kind of deep coverage scenarios on kickoffs and punts. Brian Kelly was very intensely watching that segment of practice. I think they're still trying to figure out who's going to be kind of their gunners downfield, what their rotation is going to look like on both punts and kickoffs. But look. Ramblin had a nice day yesterday. Peyton Todd booted a couple nice punts during the special team segment. I still think Ramos and Dybert are still in a pretty thick battle right now for the field goal spot. But on punt returns, they're adding more and more guys by the day. I mean, Aaron Anderson was back there yesterday, but there was also a couple added names. I believe Caleb Jackson was back there. Logan Diggs was over there fielding some punts. Noah Cain was fielding some kickoffs. He was their kickoff guy last year, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's something maybe that they look at again this year. Gregory Clayton was obviously back there. Javen Nicholas. So they've got a lot of bodies back there. I think they're just trying to figure out who the right fit is, but if Aaron Anderson is going to be the guy, I think he can absolutely change at least a couple games for you this year, whether it's flipping the field over, returning it for touchdowns. I mean, it's been a while since LSU had a game-changing kind of specialist back there, and that was something that for a while they were really known for. And so I think Aaron Anderson has every bit of that potential for the Tigers this year.
Glenn, let me give you a couple of names and just give me your thoughts on them. Tank Guillory.
Yeah, I mean, I've been surprised that they've used him in so many first-team rotations. I just kind of figured that once Mekhi Wingo was healthy, he and Mason Smith were going to take over a lot of those opportunities. But they've used Jacobian a lot during the first 3 or 4 practices with that first team. I think you're going to see a lot more rotation there than maybe people expected. Mekhi Wingo is certainly going to be involved, and he was with the first team yesterday while Guillory was kind of mainly with the second team. But I think that they really liked his development in the spring. He really was kind of the leader of that defensive line with so many guys out a few months ago. And they've kind of really relied on him, I think, to be a voice of that defensive line room that's undergone some really significant changes here, even in the last week. I mean, with the unfortunate news about Coach Lindsey, they really need some leaders to step up in that room. And I think certainly Jacobian's a guy that they're looking at. Savion Jones is another guy they're looking at in that department. And, I think that he's made some really significant strides and think he'll be able to contribute as part of the rotation this year.
Landon Ibieta.
Yeah, Landon actually, I think, made the catch of the day yesterday during one-on-one drills. He was pretty tightly covered, but he was able to make a nice adjustment on a back shoulder throw and kind of dove towards the sidelines and made a really nice catch yesterday. He's been working mostly with the second team. He's just a very sure-handed guy. I mean, he hasn't really, I think, popped yet during the actual 11-on-11 stuff, but I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, he really is going to be a sure-handed catcher for you, a guy who I think can create a little bit of separation, reliable piece, I think, for this offense. And I'll be interested to see how they use him. I mean, there are just so many receivers right now that are playing well that he's just kind of another guy right now. And so, he's going to have to create some separation from guys like Kyron Lacey, like Aaron Anderson, like Malik Neighbors, and Chris Hilton's another name that really comes to mind. He's had a really nice start to camp. So there's just a lot of options I think they're going to be relying on here as the days and weeks go on.
Last one, Quincy Wiggins.
Yeah, I mean, I think Quincy he's rotated a lot at defensive end. He's kind of working behind Savion Jones right now. I'd say that Quincy Wiggins and Deshaun Womack are probably kind of in the same boat right now. In that they're getting a lot of the second team reps behind Savion. Savion's looked really, really good. I think he's going to be really a breakout candidate for this team this year. But Quincy Wiggins is, he looks bigger. I think he's added some good weight to him. Has really, I think, improved his explosiveness off the edge. And I'll be very interested to see kind of what he turns into here as fall camp evolves. He's going to continue to get reps, and I would imagine he's a part of the rotation there on at defensive end.
I lied. This is the last one. Bo Bordelon.
Yeah. Oh man, Bo Bordelon. He's been. I know that a couple of guys in the media have really took a shining to him over the last 3 or 4 days. He's getting a lot of rotation in as an interior guard. Lineman. He's done a really nice job. I think he's a little bit bigger than even he was in the spring. That was always kind of the goal, I think, for Bo, was to get here and add some really good weight to his frame. And he's done that. I think he's looked a lot more explosive. He's been very consistent. They were doing some really intense drills yesterday between the interior O lineman and the interior defensive lineman. And I thought that Borderline really held his own and did a really nice job. This offensive line is going to be a little bit deeper, I think, than people might expect. They've got obviously the great starting lineup, but I think they have some real depth back there. I think Brad Davis has done a fantastic job of developing those guys, and I think they're going to have some pieces that they can really rely on outside of that starting group. And I think Borderline's certainly going to be in that mix.
Glenn, good stuff, man. Thanks for the time this morning. We'll catch up soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jordy.
You got it. There he is. Big Glenn West, the 7-footer, covering LSU football for 247 Sports, covering all LSU sports. A great follow on Twitter as well, at Glenn West. Get your membership over at 247 Sports.